Has anybody actually tried to type in a YouTube URL?
No.
Oh, that's with all letters and numbers. Aren't they impossible?
And characters, all kinds of weird
Yeah,
stuff.
it's like gibberish.
Yeah, you can cut and paste, but only Freddie could type them in.
All right.
I'm gonna have a little fun. Say, okay, adjourned.
Liz just gave us a thumbs up.
Okay. They don't know why it all of a sudden started working, but it's working. So we're live
Okay, good.
and we're good.
All
I'm
right.
on YouTube.
So
I
we'll
don't
figure
see
that
it.
out tomorrow.
You don't see us yet?
I'm on YouTube. I don't see anything.
Yeah, we're up. We're on there. I
I
can
was
see
on
us.
YouTube and I saw it.
Can you
Yep.
try refreshing the page?
Oh, is that? Oh. Yeah.
All right.
Good. All right. I
All
apologize.
right. Well,
for the-
I am going to move forward with the meeting since we're live now.
Yes, thank
so
you everyone
under-
for your patience.
Under board correspondence, the board did get some correspondence from a group representing the 1960s reunion committee pertaining to the mascot that we received actually prior to our open comment night. And that was really all the board correspondence that we got this time around. And then we're going to go to superintendent's comments.
Okay, great. I do want to comment on we successfully had our first home football game on Saturday. And not only did we successfully have the game and have the marching band perform and the cheerleaders perform, but we beat Phillipsburg for, I think, the first time. I mean, according to the paper, it was the first time ever.
First time in 20 years.
Okay, so thank you, Peter. It was a really exciting game. And it was a beautiful day for a game, and it was nice to have, we had, the parents were able to be there, even though we had limited fans. We did have it live streamed. Our Performing Arts Center staff live streamed it, announced the game, and I actually got some emails about how much people enjoyed being able to watch it from the comfort of their home via the live stream. So, we've been live streaming select sporting events, and it's gone really well. And that might be something that actually continues once we can have more fans at the games again, because it allows it to get to a wider audience. And grandparents who don't live close by are able to watch the games, and other relatives and friends. So, we've gotten some nice innovative approaches to some of our past practices that have come out of this. Other than that, I really want to commend our staff and our students and our parents for their approach to our hybrid model for the past, I guess we're about maybe 7 weeks into the school year by now, 7 or 8. And it has gone phenomenally well because of everyone's patience, understanding, flexibility, compliance with the guidelines. And I know that this model is exhausting for the teachers and the students because it's very different from what they're used to. But they have embraced it with open arms and done a tremendous job. And you can even tell the difference walking through the hallways now. It's not as quiet as it was at the beginning of the year. And when I say that, meaning when you walk through the hallways, the classrooms are livelier, I think, because everyone's gotten more comfortable with the technology and with the approach. So there's definitely more life in the classrooms as people are engaging further in learning. So I'm tremendously proud to be a part of our learning community, and I really commend all the members of it for the work that they're doing to make this a success. So, and I really appreciate the board's support as we went through the plan for this, because you all really did a great job in terms of listening and really very thoughtfully considering all the different options. So I am just, really proud that we've been able to get to this point in the school year and provide the opportunities for our students that we have. So thank you for that. And that's all I have.
I don't have prepared comments. I just wanted to kind of get from this, Dr. Jewett. I saw a couple things about surveys and getting information back from parents and the the PTO having a meeting. And so just maybe explain exactly the timing with that and maybe when the board might get some of that information.
Certainly. So we sent out surveys to the students, parents, and staff last week just to gauge how things are going so far. And I know the principal is looking at all of that feedback, and I can ask him to give me, some of the highlights to share with the board, and we can even share some of that at the next board meeting if you would like. And then last night, and perhaps Ms. Zober can even speak a little bit about this, the PTO had a meeting where they invited a number of teachers just to talk about what's going on in the classrooms and provide some feedback. And Susan, I don't know if you want to give a little, color to that. I heard it was a very productive meeting.
It was a great meeting. It was an opportunity for parents and teachers to interact and talk about, from each's perspective, what is working with a hybrid model and what is still a challenge for the students, for the teachers. And it was very well attended. It was so well run. The PTO did a great job. Tina Osmond, I know the new president, is so enthusiastic and really wants to, contribute to the success of the school year. And Greg O'Reilly sort of moderated it. And there were 5 breakout rooms, each with 2 or 3 teachers representing different subjects. And I attended as a parent, not, I'm a parent of a senior. I attended as a parent. And it was just a great opportunity to talk about what's working. And we came up with a list, collectively, we came up with a list of areas that we thought could be improved. And I believe the teachers were then going to bring that, probably Dr. Jewett, to you, or maybe to Mr. Librera. And, this should be ongoing. And I personally was so impressed with how enthusiastic the teachers were.
Good.
I mean, they were there from 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock last night. The capacity of the meeting was 40 people. And I think there were 36. And after the first breakout session, there were 33. And at the end at 9 o'clock, there were 30, which I thought was great retention. So more events like that would be great.
And one of the, the pieces of feedback that is coming out of this, that's something for us to, that we'll have to consider moving forward, is we may not go back to having all of our events in person, just because the parents seem to appreciate the ability for some of these events to be able to sign in from home, just because of their, crazy schedules with, getting their kids transported different places and different night commitments that they have. So that's, gotten us to thinking in terms of discussing it among the administration at the high school, that perhaps, some of these events, whether we do them as a hybrid, where you have the option of attending in person or virtually, or some of them, we intersperse some virtual events in there, just because we seem to actually get better attendance at some of them than we have at the in-person events in the past. So, just something I'm putting out there that we're talking about for the future, because I have gotten some positive feedback, a lot of positive feedback, from some of the parents, just in terms of the convenience and accessibility of the events. So just something
just a plug for the PTO. The PTO sponsored that event, and I know they made it available to their membership first. And I believe that they were at capacity with members. So if anybody's not a member of the PTO, might not, any parents might want to join, because they really have a great schedule for the rest of the year.
Great.
Great.
All right. Business administrators' comments.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a couple of things to update the board. One is construction update. It is coming along quite a bit. The contractor did ask for a little bit of a delay claim, about 3 weeks, or actually 4 weeks, but we're going to grant 3. Their issues were nothing on site, nothing with conditions, mainly ordering difficulties. Certain parts, unfortunately, were delayed getting to them. So it kind of put them out of sequence. But with that being said, the last couple of weeks, they've really hustled, and the place is starting to come along. Ceilings are practically done. The walls are done. They're working on the flooring right now. And I think by Friday, they told me that they were going to have that little sectioned room, that glass room that goes in the middle of the room. Based on the information that we have, and based on we're going to have to put furniture in there, the books and everything. So we're probably looking at getting in there probably in December, if things go well. But as I said, it is looking good. The one thing we did put into the extension of time, any delay claims with furniture being held in storage or delays, it's on them, which they agreed to. The second thing is the bipolar ionization. We did notify the architect to get going on the bid specs, and they are working on them as we speak. They do want to have them ready for December. I'm trying to push them to get it into November to get the bid out on the street. What we did do to kind of expedite the process a little bit and actually try to get a sample of what we were ordering is we ordered 5 units for classroom univents. So we're going to install them, and it should take about 2 weeks. So we ordered them last week. So we got another week. So we're going to install them, those 5, to see if there's any installation issues or electrical issues that we may run into, that we have to change the specs. And if we're successful and they're real simple, we probably will go and try to get quotes up to the bid threshold just for those, if installation is easy. If it's something that if we can handle, we'll go as far as we can and then just bid the rest. The one thing the engineer told me, knock on wood when I say this, but he said the preliminary estimates may have been a little high, and he feels the number will come in beneath that. I think we had between 250 and 300,000. He believes it'll be much less than that. So that's good news. And then one other thing is we had an ESIP proposal for something called an ESCO. An ESIP is an energy savings improvement program. And the first phase of that is to go out and get an ESCO, an energy savings company, to work along with our architect. It's been a while since we talked about it. In fact, it was right before the pandemic hit that we started this process, and we put it on hold during the entire spring, unfortunately. That kind of delayed what we wanted to do. But we did get 2 proposals. The architect is reviewing, and then we're going to bring them to the operations committee. And Steve Siegel from Spiesel will be there to discuss this with us. But there's a lot of projects they had in there. Just preliminarily, the numbers were in the $5 million range, just so you understand. It included lighting, HVAC, solar panels, some of the heating units. So there was quite a bit in there. But that's something it's cursory at this point. It gets more involved. So, but it's coming. And that's all I have, Madam President.
Okay. All right, so now we're at the point of the meeting for the first opportunity for public comment. The first public comment period is limited to agenda items for this meeting. The second public comment period will be open to any topic. All comments are limited to 5 minutes. So if you're watching us on YouTube, you have to click the link to join, the Zoom link to join. And we will admit you, and please change your sign-on name to a name that we can recognize, and we will admit you, and then you can state your name and where you're from. Provide your comment.
Great. So we'll give them 30 seconds since they have that delay. We're not as popular tonight. There's not as many watching on YouTube, so we'll see if any of them sign over for public comment.
Okay.
How many are watching? Go ahead.
So there's 14
link.
watching live, but that doesn't include, I can ask Chris Valenti, he can tell how many are watching it via the DVR mode where they can pause it and play it back. Because we had more people doing that last time than watching it live. Nobody has signed on to Zoom.
Okay. All right. I guess at this point, we'll close the first opportunity for public comment, knowing that there's a second opportunity at the end of the meeting. The next part of our agenda is board discussion. And we were going to talk about if anybody wants to discuss the mascot comments we received or have any discussion about that. That was one thing we thought we would put through board discussion. So does anybody have anything to discuss with regard to that? Reflections, thoughts?
I was just happy to see all of the students who participated in the public forum, and I thought I was so impressed with how eloquent they were, and I appreciated everybody's comments, but I certainly liked seeing current students participate.
Was
Can
some
you,
of the comments we got?
I'm sorry, I just want to know if you can see the hands raised or if you need to tell me who.
No, I can't see hands raised.
Okay.
I don't know why, but I can't see
If
that.
you click on participants at the bottom of your screen, it'll pull up the list.
Okay. All right. So Greg, now I can see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Thanks, Dr. Foot. So a couple of comments that I wanted to make, and I think that the community forum that allowed everyone to comment and having board listen was a valuable experience for us. And I certainly took into account what was discussed at that. There were a couple of comments raised on more than one occasion about engaging the Lenape, and I just wanted to clarify, since that was a unidirectional discussion, that a number of years ago, the Lenape were actually contacted by a former Watchung Hill student and did reply that they felt that the mascot was offensive and not, in fact, a tribute or respectful to the Lenape people. That's consistent with what is on their own website, as well as the Native American national website. So I believe that communication has occurred and we've gotten a response. I think an important thing for everyone to understand is the fact that the onus is on us and not on the Lenape Nation, who are offended by the mascot, to make a change. They're not obligated in any way to participate in a discussion. And in fact, they were invited a number of years ago when the survey went out to the students asking about the mascot, whether they wanted to communicate with the students or with the community, and they actually declined. And that's really consistent with the issues of inappropriate appropriation of an identity of another culture, where it really is the responsibility of the appropriators to deal with that, as opposed to asking those that are offended by the appropriation to respond. I think if we want to honor the history of the Lenape, there are a number of ways that we can do that outside of a mascot. Those would include things like creating some sort of memorial that describes some of the history in summary, or enhancing our educational program so that students in the school get a greater understanding and exposure to the local history that we have, rather than using the mascot as a way to do it. I got the sense from the discussion that most of the community who did respond did feel that the mascot was not appropriate and should be changed. We did receive an email. I believe all the board members did receive it from a parent of a student who provided an example of an alternative mascot that could be considered, which I think is an outstanding step in the correct direction. I did not get the sense that most of the community was dissatisfied or wanted to change the name Warrior associated with Watchung Hills. I would point out that there is a pretty strong link between Warrior and the mascot, meaning that originally the Warrior name was not chosen, and then a multiple choice decision among a variety of mascots was considered before the Indian representation was chosen. So they are linked, but I do get that there are alternative mascots that could be chosen to represent a warrior, and therefore there's a harder argument, I think, to make to change the name, although I personally think that those two are linked. Ultimately, I'm very grateful for all of the board's work and the community's work in discussing this over a period of a couple of months, and hopefully we can come to a resolution that allows us to move forward in a way that's respectful to the heritage as well as to the history of our school.
Thank you, Greg. Bob?
So I think that, again, I found it very interesting, and I appreciated everyone who came out to provide their point of view on this particular issue. And I kind of read it the same way that Greg reads it, as it relates to, certainly people, I think for the most part, understand the need to decouple the warrior name from the Lenape, but it seemed like a lot of folks were, supported the idea of maintaining the warrior name, but developing some sort of a different identity that would be appropriate. So I certainly appreciated all of that feedback, and I'm going to remain kind of open-minded on this till the committee completes their work. I will say I thought it was a great turnout. I was surprised by the lack of comments, and maybe that's because their comments, were already reflected in others. But I thought that for the turnout that was there, it seemed like there weren't and I guess, like I said, the people that did speak were probably representing the folks that did not speak. So I suspect that that's the case. I certainly hope so. I do want to make sure that everyone that has a comment about this or a strong sentiment that they want to share with the committee, that there's still a window of time for them to do that before the committee completes their work. Because I'm sure the last thing that a lot of people wanted to do on a Thursday evening was sit on another Zoom call after sitting on them all day long.
So one thing I just want to, Bob, I'm glad you brought up a couple good points. So I think what we had talked about is that the committee had met twice. We had the forum, and now it's being turned over to the board, basically, and the administration to take all of that feedback. Tomorrow, actually, Mr. LeBaron and Mr. Sabino, we're going to follow up with the committee, just letting them know, what the next steps would be, because I think they're part in the process. And Barry and Janine, both sat on that, is kind of complete now. We did, when we sent the invitation for the forum, we did invite people to also send any comments they had in writing to the principal secretary. And actually, a couple of those came through that I asked Dina to put together in a PDF packet. It's only, I think, 2 or 3 more additional comments that I will share with the board tomorrow. So, and in terms of the folks who were signed on to the Zoom last week, but I did look through to see, who had participated, and there were a number of people that I saw signed on, a lot of staff members and students who actually just asked me if it was okay for them just to sign on to listen, if they didn't necessarily want to share a comment. So I know that was the intent of a number of people who signed on. And I think Janine and Barry can attest to the fact that the committee meetings were certainly very active in terms of participation and feedback in terms of comments. So yeah, the forum was definitely a little lighter in terms of that, but I think that, certainly there was a lot shared at the committee level.
Anybody else have any comments or want to ask questions?
Yeah, Rita, can I?
Sure.
Yeah, I would just like a little more feedback from Janine and Barry regarding the committee meetings, because my sense also from listening to the open forum was that there was general acquiescence or feeling that the warrior name is fine and we should keep that, but plenty of people felt that the mascot, the Lenape, are things that we should move away from. And I'm asking Janine and Barry to tell us, do they have a different sense based upon their participation in the committee meetings?
I
Go
would
ahead, Janine.
say that's what you're just saying is accurate. There was it was a very active group of people. Everyone had something to say. I don't think there was anyone on the committee that did not give their opinion. And I would say most of the students that were on the committee seemed to feel that they were looking to move on from the mascot. And it was mixed about that. There were definitely people who didn't think we should get rid of the mascot, but many people who thought we should get rid of it. And I would just say the overwhelming majority seemed to want to keep the Warriors name. And then they felt that there were so many other positive associations not related to the Native Americans that they felt that that was okay to keep.
Thanks, Janine.
Barry?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I agree with that. I think the thing that I took out of it the most was that they were willing to keep the name, but the mascot pretty much had to go, which is fine. So I was wondering, could we make this some sort of contest using the art department, and anybody could, give their entry, but make a contest out of it through the art department for a new logo, something that reflects Watchung Hills in a unique way. Doesn't necessarily have to be a warrior type of mascot, although that would make sense. But, get something where people put in their ideas to move forward and change the logo, but, change the mascot, but keep the name.
All right.
Is that sort of the next step after Liz brings this back as a sort of, if there is a board consensus for the rest of the board to move forward from the mascot and the Lenape and keep the warrior name, her to bring back to Bill and whomever to then come up with the procedure, possibly incorporating Barry's contest idea or something? I'm just asking procedurally.
That's what, that would be my recommendation. That's what we've talked about, certainly on a school level. And I think some of the board members, we've had those conversations. And I think that came up during the committee meetings as well. And I think that's a tremendous way for us to build some school spirit and get the students really involved. And I think in some of the emails you've gotten, you've already seen that people have started offering, alternatives and different ideas and some really creative ideas. So that certainly I think would be a great path to move forward once the board makes a decision, if we're staying or if we are going to change the mascot. Once we finalize that, I think that's certainly a great way to go.
So
Okay.
what is our timing on making that decision? Because it sounds like there's pretty uniform direction.
Janine has her hand raised, and then Rita, did you want to speak to that?
Sure. In terms of the timeline, I mean, it's the way I understand it is that through this discussion, through our discussions here, I mean, I'm not hearing anything from board members that suggests we should keep the mascot, right? So, I mean, and I don't know that we're going to have a vote. I don't know that we're going to have a vote on this, essentially. That's where I get a little lost with the procedurally, so.
So the way that other districts who have done this have moved forward with this is they have had a board resolution. So if this is something that the board, comes to a consensus on, and I think the administration, we've had similar conversations about this, then I would put a resolution on the next agenda with regard to this. And so that way, then we take action. So that would kind of formalize the fact. And again, it seems from this discussion that the consensus is to keep the warrior, but find a new representation of that in terms of the mascot and the logo. And so the resolution would say as much.
Okay.
Could I suggest that we put that resolution on the November 10th work session meeting rather than hold it off till the second November meeting?
I don't have any problem with that.
I would agree.
Agree.
I would agree, and it gives the public another opportunity to comment as well as everyone to think about it a little bit.
Yes.
Before deciding.
Yeah.
So Janine and Freddie, so go ahead.
Yeah, the one thing I forgot is that we really didn't at all discuss the other names associated, like the arrowhead and the other things
Oh,
that
that's
we
true.
kind of threw in together. We really just didn't get into that. So that's something that needs to also be kind of ironed out, possibly at the committee level or, with the students. And something else that was mentioned that I just think is worth noting is that, because we have so many, female sports teams and, it's equal to the male sports teams that, we don't want to forget that a warrior could be male or female. We don't want it to be too, people didn't want it to be too masculine. A couple of people said, so I just wanted to throw that out there and also I think if we're when this new mascot comes about, if that's the way we go, I think, it would be cool to have the whole community vote on, once we narrow it down, have everybody involved with voting on what they think, after the students narrow it down for us.
Put it on a referendum.
Janine, that's why they pay us the big bucks to make these.
Freddie.
I am not muted. Just a quick comment. Thank you for summarizing the comments at the forum. Obviously, I wasn't able to make it. I just would like if that, I guess, from this point on till the next meeting, the 10th, if the committee could have a discussion with the administration, the formal steps of what will come about as a potential replacement of the logo. And I mentioned that at the last meeting, so I'd appreciate if we have just some feedback on that before the resolution. Thank you.
I'm not exactly sure what he means. Do you?
I don't think we're there yet, Freddie. That's like the next step, because right now what we're, and correct me if I'm wrong in terms of the board and the resolution we passed back in, I think it was June or July, but I think the direction was first to determine the appropriateness of the current logo. It's not based on what the replacement would be, because that gets into a whole nother set of decisions of, well, I think we should change this one, but I don't necessarily like what the alternatives proposed are, especially because that's going to be a longer term process. We definitely would not have that narrowed down in 2 weeks by our next board meeting. That's something that people are certainly going to want time for. So that's a whole other process in and of itself. So I'd hate to rush that, in terms of, plus that really shouldn't impact, from the way I see it, shouldn't impact this decision, because we're looking purely at the current mascot and logo and whether we feel that is appropriate and aligned with our core values as a district or not. So I do believe that we had said that would be the next step. So I just wanted to make sure, though, that that was the understanding of everyone.
And to that, I guess that point, if I remember correctly, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but we in that resolution also included that the logo would be suspended and like the arrowhead would be suspended pending a decision. So I also don't see the need to rush this for the rest of the academic year, considering that, we're not using the logo at the time being. So I just think it's important that we can have some processes of what we'll follow as a potential replacement.
Okay.
Yeah. Rita, if I may, just quick suggestion. So my understanding is that, we're going to remove the logo itself, but we probably want to have some sort of interim, like I'm going to call it branding guidelines, right? What are we using, since it might take a little bit of time?
We have the WH that we use. That is what we've been using, for the most part as well, in addition to the warrior head. Right. So that's what we'd use. And again, in talking to other districts who have gone through similar processes, Bill and I both reached out to some of the other districts. I reached out to Pascack Regional, because they recently determined that they were going to change their mascot and their name. And they made that determination before. Right now, they're in the process of deciding what they're changing it to. And he reached out to Scotch Plains, because they recently had changed their mascot as well, just to find out what their processes were. And their initial step was really making a decision on the current mascot, and then moving forward with determining, what the replacement would be. And they did it by board resolution, and then moved forward. And I talked to them too about how they came to the decision. And, they were very open in terms of talking about some of the things that they wish they had done differently in their approach. And so we tried to incorporate that in our process as well. Right. But we do have the WH, and we have the school colors, and all of that is staying consistent. So it's not that we won't have anything. And, it's going to take time anyway, because if this is, the decision that the board moves forward with, we do have the warrior head in different places in the school and on things that will cost money for us to make a change. So that, will be the next discussion of how we phase that in, which I think that, there's no expectation that all of a sudden, if we make this decision 24 hours later, you won't see it anywhere. I think, it's certainly something that will gradually over time take care of. Again, if this is the direction we determine that we're going to move in. So there's a lot of pieces to this, which is why we're trying to incrementally take one piece at a time. My fear, if we put it off again, as the board members who have been on this board for a number of years know, this is not the first time that this has come up. And what happens is, some discussion happens, then it gets put off for various reasons. It's come up again. I mean, it's important enough to our students that they've brought it up a number of times. So that would just be my feeling, is if we are going to move forward with this, that we continue, now that we've started this process, and have a commitment to it. And again, DEI is something we've talked a lot about as a board and an administration and a district over the past couple of years, and it's one of our goals in our upcoming strategic plan. So I think that this is certainly an important part of that. And I think the fact that we've highlighted it as well, it's not like we're doing it, we're making this decision under the dark of night or without having had a lot of conversation about it. So I would hate to put it off and then all of a sudden pass some resolution several months into the future when it's not on people's radar, and then they think we made a decision, where we weren't super transparent about it. So those are just my thoughts, especially from talking to other districts on how they've approached it.
Greg?
Just get it done.
I think we've got reasonable timing. If it is put on as what we will be discussing at the second meeting in November, at the first meeting in November, so that there's once again a public notice of it. We make a decision second meeting of November, and then we've got the rest of the school year to make an ultimate decision as to what transpires, so that when it comes time to making decisions about school sports uniforms, et cetera, for the following calendar year, that we're already complete through this discussion.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would just say I'd prefer to make a decision at the first meeting in November. I don't think an additional 2 weeks beyond that, we can, put out the notice that it's going to be discussed at the first meeting in November. Let anybody who wants to give us additional feedback, give it to us by then. And I'd just assume we move forward with this.
I'm okay either way, Peter.
Yeah, so am I. I mean, it doesn't make it, I mean, I think we have discussed it a lot. I think we've gotten a lot of feedback. I think it's been on the agenda. I mean, I've only been on the board 4 years, but I've seen it come up before, right? So, and I know it's come up before that. It's time, I think. The only question I have is what Janine was asking about, the other names. So I don't know do we need a resolution for that? Or is that going to go back to the committee? Where are we on those? Arrowhead, I think, is part of the problem, right?
We have the newspaper, which is the Arrowhead, and we have the yearbook, which is called the Lenape.
Okay.
So
there's nothing that requires us to put that in the resolution for
that's what my question is. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's start there. And then, we can have some more input from the committee on those other things, or cover that in the process as we go forward to find a new mascot. And then, naturally with the new mascot, change the yearbook and the newspaper name.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe that was covered in the original resolution.
We talked about looking at that. Yes. So I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be the same timeline as everything else, but yes, that was mentioned in there. You're absolutely right about looking at that. And, those are obviously student clubs. So, we may even want to approach that a little bit differently in terms of getting, the students who are really involved with those, getting their input and feedback on that.
Yep. That makes sense too. Okay. All right, I'm going to close board discussion on the mascot. And then unless there's other board discussion, I was going to move into discussion of addenda items. Okay, so on the addendum items, does anybody have any questions? We talked about the personnel ones in personnel committee. Executive session. And I don't know what else addendum items we have.
Tim, do you have a couple?
Oh, there's a couple, 18, 19, 20, 21.
Yeah, I had one's just a non-public bus route. And we just can't exceed $1,000 per student, which is 4 students out of $4,000. So that's fine. And where we can provide transportation, we do. 19 is just allocations for non-public nursing, security, and textbooks. And 20 and 21 were essentially more CARES money for the non-public school. And I kind of had to push that one. 21 irritated me. Shame on the state for the very poor notification on this. The money was technically available July through the end of October. And they notified us in the non-public school in mid-September. And in our public world, that's a lot to do in really a short period of time. I don't know. That really frustrated me. But anyway, so we worked it out with our non-public school, Mount St. Mary's, and they provided me the order and the information on what they're ordering, some laptops for their students. So anyway.
And then we have two addendum items on, or under A too, I just noticed. One was the HIB that we discussed last time. And then the other is the approval of the Principals Supervisors Association Memorandum of Agreement, right? So any discussion on the addendum items? All right, seeing none.
Madam President, I'd like to move the adoption of resolutions A1 through A6.
Second.
Any questions or comments on A1 through A6? Roll call, please, Mr. Stice.
Dr. Chand,
Yes.
Mr. Fallon,
Yes,
Mr. Hayek,
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger,
Yes.
Mr. Morrison,
Yes.
Ms. Zober,
Yes.
Ms. Potter,
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky,
Yes.
Ms. Raban.
Yes.
Yes.
Quick. And then Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Okay, motion's carried.
Madam President, I'd like to move the adoption of resolutions A7 and A8.
Second.
There's an A8.
There is.
Yes. Oh, okay. I must be
That is,
looking at an old agenda.
That's a settlement agreement.
Oh, okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on A7 through A8? Roll call, please, Mr. Stice.
Dr. Chand,
Yes.
Mr. Fallon,
Yes,
Mr. Hayek,
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger,
Yes.
Mr. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Ober,
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky,
Greg, you had on mute.
Yes.
Ms. Raban,
Yes.
and Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Madam President, I'd like to move the adoption of resolution B1.
Second.
Any questions or comments on B1? Okay, roll call, please.
Dr. Chand,
Yes.
Mr. Fallon,
Yes,
Mr. Hayek,
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger,
Yes.
Mr. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Ober,
Yes.
Ms. Potter,
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky,
Yes.
Ms. Raban,
Yes.
and Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Madam President, I'd like to move the adoption of resolutions C1 through C23.
Second.
Any questions or comments on C1 through C23?
Just that I'm happy that I beat Bob to the second.
Great.
You did now.
All righty, roll call, please.
Dr. Chand,
Yes.
Mr. Fallon,
Yes,
Mr. Hayek,
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger,
Yes.
Mr. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Ober,
Yes.
Ms. Who did I? Ms.
Ms.
Potter,
Yes.
Ms. Raban,
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky,
Yes.
I see, yeah, and Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Sorry, my list got all screwed up on this one.
did we pass, Tim?
We did, motion carries, or motions carry.
Madam President, I'd like to move the adoption of resolutions D1 through D11 and D19 through D21.
Oh, come on, Bob. Second.
Second.
Any questions or comments on D1 through D11 and then D
19 through 21.
19 through 21? Okay, roll call, please.
Okay, Dr. Chand,
Yes.
Mr. Fallon,
Yes,
Mr. Hayek,
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger,
Yes.
Mr. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Ober,
Yes.
Ms. Potter,
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky,
Yes.
Ms. Raban,
Yes.
and Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Motion's carry.
Madam President, I'd like to move the adoption of resolutions D12 through D18.
Second.
Any questions or comments on D12 through D18?
Yeah, Tim, I have, question about D13. So
13.
this transportation cost is so high. I mean, you explained in response to my email that one child costing like $59,000 a year is something that it could be improved. I mean, suppose you give some sort of a monthly fee to the parents. Can't parents take the child to that place? I mean, 59,000 for one child seems to be too high, right? And there are a few other cases, 40,000, 50,000, like that,
Yeah, especially like I explained, special ed transportation is, it's expensive. Particularly in this particular case that you pointed out, there's an aid involved and a required aid. Generally, when you have a required aid, it's going to cost you more because it's another person that you're paying for. You cannot pass that on to the parents in this particular case.
So this aid remains with that child all the time?
For the drive.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, for the bus route, there also may be an aid in the program, but that one I don't particularly know, but I know on the bus there is, yes.
Naresh, I can also tell you that these special ed transportation costs have driven the rest of us on the board crazy for years.
Yeah.
They're astronomical amounts. There's a state law that says if we spend more than $40,000 on a child, that the state's supposed to pick up the excess cost. But every year when they adopt a budget, they don't adopt a budget large enough to pay that cost. And so they don't. But it's frustrated us for many, many years, Naresh.
Yeah,
Extraordinary aid actually doesn't include transportation anyway, so that's a problem.
Yeah, no, and the other thing, what we try to do is we use the various ed services commissions, the Morris Union Jointure
Right, if you
Commission.
could get a route that.
And what happens is on some of these, you're lucky enough to have other schools join in. So in other words, if you have two kids from, say, Bridgewater on that route, then us and Bridgewater will be splitting that cost. Now, this particular route, there's just the one student. That's why it's so expensive. Where we can pool with other schools, we absolutely try, but it's not always possible. It depends on the route, where they're going, where they're coming from, what other students need transportation, and obviously sometimes it's based on the need of the student. So it's not perfect. I wish it was a little cheaper. I'm with you on this one, 100%. It's a lot of money, and we don't get any
$500 million
relief from transportation in terms of special ed. We get extraordinary aid for some tuition and some EA money for some tuition, but nothing for the transportation, which is brutal. But it is
Right. It's a problem throughout the whole state, so.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? All right, roll call, please, Mr. Stice.
Dr. Chand,
Yes.
Mr. Fallon,
Yes.
Mr. Hayek,
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger,
Yes.
Mr. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Ober,
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky,
Yes.
Ms. Raban,
Yes.
and Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Motion's carried.
All right, we are now at a portion of our agenda for second opportunity for public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please click the link for Zoom. Make sure your name shows up on the screen and your screen name as your name, if possible. And we will admit you and state your name and where you're from, and we would love to hear your comment.
While we're waiting, I'll let you know that we have we've had between 17 and 20 people watching the meeting live, and we have almost 30 that are watching it via playback. And we even got one like. So.
Was that you?
It was Susan. Susan liked us.
Yeah. There you go.
Who paid somebody $5 to give?
Okay.
There's nobody entering Zoom.
All right.
Madam President, can I make a motion in accordance with the provision of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act? Or do you want to do other business first?
Well, can I close public session first?
No, I thought Liz did that.
Usually
Peter,
you're the one, you're
well,
like, all right, Rita, you forgot to.
I'm just-
All right, I'm going to close public session first. And other business, the only thing I can think of is strategic plan. We're going to have a meeting, I think, on strategic plan soon.
We're going to have a committee meeting. Yes, for those of you on the strategic plan committee, I'll be setting that up. Probably, it may not happen before our November 10th meeting, so we may actually hold off on that part of the presentation until the November 24th meeting, just because we're sharing it with the staff next week, and then we have teachers convention. And I want the whole design team to be able to, or at least the majority of them, to be able to attend the meeting with the strategic plan committee. And I just don't want to rush that in terms of if we meet Monday and the board meeting's Tuesday, because I want you guys to have a chance to look at the draft documents and give feedback. So I'll touch base with Jordana to send out some possible dates and times so that committee will meet. And then that discussion may get pushed to the November 24th meeting from the November 10th meeting, just based on Rita, Jordana's and my conversation today.
And then the other thing is self-evaluations. I'm asking for them, if you recall from my email, by the end of next week, I think, so that Gwen can compile them and we can have our retreat on the 17th. All right, any other business?
So I have one other just quick item. An advisory came out from New Jersey School Boards Association today about the fact that the Senate will be hearing S 2343 or 2843, which was the bill that would take the decision-making process out of our hands as it relates to varsity high school coaches and all assistant coaches, where varsity high school coaches would be given 3-year contracts and assistant coaches would be given 2-year contracts, and it provides a lot of other onerous provisions, basically usurping our authority as a board to provide proper oversight to our faculty and staff in these areas. So School Board Association is asking us to contact our senators to let them hear our position that this particular bill be defeated. The NJSBA strongly opposes it, and I would encourage us just to reinforce with our senator that we also oppose it. Senator Kaine has indicated previously that he would oppose it when this first came up back in the summer. But we thought it was had gone, but obviously in the spirit of Halloween, it decided that it had a second life. So time to put this thing out of its misery.
So in Warren, that's Senator Keene. I'm not sure it's the same senator for Morris County.
Oh,
No, Long Hill's also Kane.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, so he's busy though.
Yeah, right. He's got something to do.
At least for another week.
Yeah, but this is on the floor, goes on Thursday, so you kind of have
Thursday.
to write tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, anything the board can do to help on this one. That's a rough bill. Not good.
Naresh?
Yeah, Bob, I have a question for you. A couple of months ago, you mentioned that there was an initiative for consolidating different regional boards. Any update on that?
yeah, I think that has all taken a back seat to the current crisis. And at least as far as I know from the state level, I don't know. I know that there were conversations that were started locally, but I think that obviously there are, I think, bigger priorities in front of everyone. But I'll let Liz speak to that, or Rita, since they were having those meetings.
Yeah, nothing has transpired further with that. I can tell you that we have been coordinating a lot, certainly among the 5 districts in the midst of all of this. But yes, Bob, as you said, all of those conversations pretty much stalled when all of this, everything came up in March.
Correct. All right. Peter?
Okay, in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, we hereby resolve that the board move into executive session to discuss confidential personnel and the student residency matter. After which,
CSA contract.
and the CSA, we already did that. Oh,
No,
no,
we didn't.
CSA contract, I'm sorry. And the CSA contract, after which action will not be taken.
And there's one other personnel matter as well to add to
You did
that.
say personnel. Yep. you said
Okay,
personnel.
thank you.
Can we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you,
Aye.
everyone. We're not coming back, so you don't have to wait if you don't, unless you